Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a great break and had the chance to connect and exchange ideas. That's the idea. Our next discussion, Mobilizing Capital for Island Transitions, will take us further into how to unlock and mobilize investment for island transitions, bringing together global finance, regional expertise, and innovative funding models to drive scalable clean energy and climate solutions. For moderating this panel, we have the honor to have the Ministry of Economic Development of Curaçao, Foreign Economic Cooperation, Honorable Vanessa Torre. Welcome, and welcome to all the speakers.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is feeling very well. As was said, my name is Vanessa Torre. I come from Curaçao, an island in the southern Caribbean. And Curaçao is the smallest country, nation, to ever qualify for the FIFA World Cup. So we will be playing in the FIFA World Cup this summer. We are very proud of that. So welcome to the session on mobilizing capital for island transitions. For islands like Curaçao and many represented here today, the transition to clean energy and climate resilience is not optional, and that was mentioned this morning as well. It is urgent, it's structural, and deeply economic. But let me be more direct. The challenge is not the lack of capital globally. The challenge is how to mobilize that capital effectively for islands' contexts. Because for many islands, the issue is not ambition. I just mentioned the ambition that we had to go to the World Cup. It took us 20 years, but we got there. We got there. It is bankability, scale, and execution capacity. Today, we will explore one central question. How do we unlock capital flows for islands in a way that is scalable, practical, and impactful? We are joined by an excellent panel. VIICCTF from RMI, Rocky Mountain Institute, Ashaki Goodwin from the Public Foundation and the Development Bank for Resilient Prosperity, Simon Dent from Outrigger Impact, and Juan Jose Martinez representing the Cabildo de Tenerife. Welcome to this panel. So I would like to start with questions to build this panel and exchange information. And I'll start with EJ. From your perspective, how can islands better position themselves to attract investment? And please introduce your organization as well.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be a part of the conversation today, especially as we talk about solutions for island nations. My name is VIICCTF. I am a managing director at RMI, formerly known as Rocky Mountain Institute. And we used to be a US-based think tank, but now we are a global think, do, and scale tank. And we've been working in island nations for over 15 years. And our focus has been on just this problem. How do we deploy more clean energy projects? How do we support the energy transition in island nations? So this is quite near and dear to our mission and mandate. But to answer your question, I think oftentimes when folks in the finance community talk about mobilizing capital in island nations, you hear islands are too small, right? And I understand that perspective because it takes the same amount of transaction costs whether you are deploying a $1 million project or a $100 or $10 million project. So obviously, financiers want to see more efficient deployment of capital. But as you pointed out, one of the key impediments to building what I like to call the absorptive capacity, like you said, there are lots of pools of climate finance, but not enough of them are being deployed because we do not have those bankable solutions. So the question is, how do we drive bankability and investability in island nations? I think there are two three things that we need to think about. The first is really looking at what it takes to develop bankable solutions. How much capital are we using for first mile project preparation, the kind of capital that would take the risk to do some of that early stage work that investors are unlikely to support, but are so critical in building out the pipeline that we want to see. So the kind of capital that will support feasibility studies, structuring, solar resource irradiation studies, right? That's the kind of capital we need to start to build out that pipeline. The second thing is just really addressing the issue of scale. Scale in island nations is unlikely to come from large IPPs, right? But scale could come from building repeatable, standardized, and aggregated project portfolios. And so we need to start thinking about how we address the scale issue by building platforms across island nations that aggregate and standardize these projects that investors can then deploy capital into. And then the third thing that I think is so critical is ensuring that in the capital stack, we're also looking at human capital, right? When we talk about capital, everyone thinks about financial capital, which is important, but without the enduring human capital that is needed to work with that financial capital, build the capacity and capabilities that we need to see on the ground locally in island nations. Even when you do have bankable projects, you're not going to see those projects progress. So those are the three things I think we need to see: more project preparation, aggregation and standardization and building platforms, and then also building in and incorporating human capital.
I think we will dig more into that during the rest of the panel. So, Ashaki, can you present your organizations that you represent and answer the following question: where do you see the biggest opportunity to unlock capital for islands?
And I want to say a special thanks to the colleagues at Island Innovation for convening this panel, but more so the summit at such a time where I want to say the priority needs of our islands are being buried amongst what's happening globally. But because the challenges are being buried or put to the back burner, it doesn't mean that they go away. So we still have financing issues, we still have a lot of vulnerabilities, and we're still continued to be defined as being low resilient. So I represent the Development Bank for Resilient Prosperity, better known as the Nature Bank, and we were announced at the SIDS4 conference in Antigua and Barbuda about 2 years ago. And the idea of the Nature Bank is, how do we now put nature on the balance sheets? So, you know, for most of us, we think about walking and we say, it's such a beautiful walk, and we see the trees, we see the flowers. But the fact is that nature has a value, and that value is supposed to be on our balance sheets. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the main things that the bank is advocating. How do we value nature? How do we focus on countries that are considered as low resilient and highly vulnerable? So not just SIDS, but other developing countries. How do we now embrace a multi-capital approach? You'll always hear one side of the coin will say there's not enough money out there to solve the world's problems, but the other side will say there's enough money, but we're not using it. And our approach is that we have to utilize a multi-capital approach. So how do we look at various sources of funds? And then this comes nicely to the point of how do we then look at risk? Because if you're looking at capital from multiple sources, it means that your definition of risk and your approach to risk will be very different. And the other thing that the bank is advocating, before I quickly get into your question, is about governance. So a lot of us who are seated in this room, we're either from islands or we have worked integrally within the island structure. And we do know that a lot of our multilateral institutions, the way the governance is designed, it is not designed for SIDS to be actively involved. So we are members, but a lot of the times we don't have a seat at the table. Or if we do have a seat at the table, our voice cannot be the loudest in the room because of the way those governance structures are set up. So that's just a background on the bank, and you'll hear more about us. But what I do want to say, for us, we look at finance very differently. Again, nature is the centerpiece of what we do. And we're saying that for a lot of our islands, where we've been told that we are not resource rich, if we now consider what we have, our oceans, so a lot of us are large ocean economies, a lot of us have the mangroves, the forests, that all, it has value. How do we now turn nature into something that is valued and can now bring an alternative way to finance, not projects, but our portfolios? Because another thing that we say, if we look at things project by project or intervention by intervention, it makes the risk higher. But how can we now look at things from a portfolio perspective, so then it helps with things like scaling, it helps with how do we attract financing from the multi-source that I spoke about. So when you go out to the markets or to private sector or through foundations and philanthropies, if you're now presenting a portfolio instead of an individual project, it makes it more attractive and it also reduces the risk. So for us, projects that are focused on making us more ecologically sustainable is something that we're driving and what we're encouraging our islands to put at the centerfold of their development.
Building on a different approach towards unlocking funding for projects on islands.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So we'll get more into that during the course of the panel. So our other panelist, Simon from Outrigger, what are investors really looking for in island projects? And please present your organization as well.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So I'm Simon Dent from Outrigger Impact, and Outrigger is set up specifically to look at making investments in small island developing states, or as we like to call them, big ocean states. So essentially what we're trying to do is, through a very broad blue economy strategy, work on making impact investments, both grant and for return, into projects that drive sustainability and resilience in these islands. We have a process where we look at all islands, all SIDS, and so essentially we're operating both in the Caribbean and in the Pacific, but as well in the Indian Ocean. And what we're trying to do is create some of the scale and some of this network by linking up projects, for instance, that work well in some, or project solutions or business models that work well in some islands, and think about how we can deliver them or scale them into the neighboring island within region. But potentially, and we've seen examples of this, where we can think about bringing them to, from the Caribbean to the Pacific and vice versa. So what we're trying to do is create a network through our strategy. But we're also a blended finance structure. So essentially, we have a grant facility that's supported by UK government, by GEF, and by Nordic Development Fund. And so we're making investment readiness grants to a range of projects that we believe can be scaled up over time and either become an investment for the Outrigger Fund or for third parties. So we have a investment readiness facility. We're then looking at a blended finance structure for investment so that we can deploy the right type of investment instrument. So essentially, equity where equity is needed, looking at conservation loans where those are needed, and we can then blend the returns, make the returns fit more interestingly to the type of cash flows that come from projects. And I think we've talked a little bit about sustainability of projects, and I think that's really key. I mean, you need credible economic generating projects to get long-term sustainability. And so you can't be type of red you can't be green or you can't be blue if your project is always in the red. So essentially, it's not long-term sustainable if you're not generating some sort of economic rent back to the stakeholders and to the investors. So we're looking for credible projects in islands, and we try to do that by being a little bit more innovative. We're trying to grow projects or ambition by projects that we meet to look at a type of island-wide solution or more this type of network regional solution. So we take different types of examples, obviously waste or plastics, and we're trying to, one of our grantees in the Pacific, who's in the waste recycling business, we're now trying to expand them across multiple islands. We're looking to do something similar in plastic in the Caribbean. And so we're trying to provide that transitional finance to grow just beyond their immediate type of market in a relatively small capital market in one of the islands. So that's one piece. I think we certainly also agree when we do the innovation of the projects that we need to work both with public and other private sectors. So we're very much a type of partnership and aligned investor model. So what we're trying to achieve is bring type of dedicated catalytic capital that comes from the private side, so it can be deployed much quicker than, say, DFI capital, because we've done all the hard work previously. And so that we can deploy that quickly, structure and lead transactions, and then crowd in other investments. So that's one of the ways that we can bring investment capital to the table. And then purely by having a dedicated focus in this type of sector on islands, it means that this is what we do, and this is what we're trying to establish. And what we have also looked at is bringing blue technology, bringing innovative type of solutions like electric outboards or marine transport, and bring things that work in the developed markets within the blue economy that we know well, and bring them much quicker to an island environment than they would normally take. So that's some of the things we do.
Very, very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to have a follow-up conversation with each one of you, and I hope people in the room will also join, more in-depth conversation with you in the course of the coming days. And I would now like to turn to Juan José from Tenerife. Cuéntanos de Tenerife y cómo están movilizando inversión para proyectos sostenibles en un contexto insular.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this invitation from the organizer, especially from the Cabildo de Gran Canaria, to talk about our experience. I'm Juan José Martínez. I'm the Counselor for Innovation, Research and Development of Cabildo de Tenerife, is the island government. And for us, it's the first priority to advance, to work, developing new opportunities, new strategies for our island based in the knowledge economy. It's the first time that the economy don't need natural resources to develop, need just one, is talent, is knowledge. And in that sense, island have a good position to develop it. And of course, in other topics related with the sustainable development. Also, for example, renewable energy is so capital for the island to develop this type of new source of energy and not depend of third territories. Islands are not just small territories. They are perfect laboratories for initiative in many different fields. Islands are a strategic platform to test and scale global solutions. In island, everything happens earlier. We experience sooner the pressure on resources, the dependence on external energy, and the impact of climate change. But that is not only a vulnerability, it's also a strength, because it forces us to act faster, to innovate faster, and to implement real solutions in real environment. What works on an island works anywhere. Now we're going to talk about finance. The challenge is not the lack of capital, but the lack of a structured, investable project. Islands are often perceived as a small, fragmented, and high-risk environment, which limits investment. From the Cabildo Tenerife, we have decided to change that narrative. We are not waiting for investment. We are building investment-ready opportunities. And we do this through 6 key levers. First one, European institutional funding as a catalyst. We actively use European funding to reduce risk and unlock private capital. The European Union is, in this moment, supporting our geothermal exploration project with 43 million euros and our satellite teleport project with 12 million euros. These are some of the examples where we use this type of finance. This reduces uncertainty and validate the project, making them investable, and even provide a quality label to this project. Second one, public-private partnership. In geothermal energy, for example, we work through a joint venture with Endesa, a local energy company with important international exposure, and Reykjavik Geothermal Energy. In the satellite teleport project, we collaborate with Canarisat, a company from one of the main space companies in Spain, Arkimea. Public and private sector sharing risk and aligning incentive is blended finance in action. Third, public commitment and scale. The Cabildo de Tenerife invests around 140 million euros each year in innovation, research, development, energy renewable, new technologies. This sustained commitment builds confidence for investors also. Fourth, building capabilities. The public sector plays, in our case, a very important role, reducing early stage risk through a strong innovation ecosystem. We have 11 companies related with all this sector. ITER, Canalin in Volcan, Tenerife Science and Technological Park, or Imetisa. This ecosystem spans from biomedical research to volcanology, renewable energy to supercomputing, submarine cables to clean room for satellite technologies. On this foundation, we are developing concrete projects, geothermal exploration, satellite constellation, expansion of our supercomputing capabilities, and strategical digital infrastructure. We are not replacing the private sector. We are generating and providing the capabilities for developing activities that require very high cost equipment with a long-term economic return. Fifth, talent is equally important, maybe the most important. Tenerife has a strong base of scientific and technical talent from universities to the Instituto of Astrofísica de Canarias and other world-class research centers. We create conditions for talent to stay, innovate, and develop local industry. In this moment, the Cabildo finance 90 researchers associated with the University of La Laguna and other research centers in the island for projects linked to productive sector transfer. 6, real competitive tax advantage. Canary Islands do not compete only with vision, we compete also with a special tax condition. We have one of the most attractive fiscal frameworks in Europe, 4% corporate tax, 95 tax exemption for investment, up to 90% cashback on research and development spending. The combination of fiscal incentive in the Canary Islands has not comparison anywhere in Europe, especially for research and development intensive activities. All of this contributes to make Tenerife investment ready. A structured project, reduce risk, available infrastructure, talent, and public commitment. If we want capital to flow to island, we need better European instrument adapted to Island, real blended finance mechanism, and long-term partnership between institution, investor, and local ecosystem. In Tenerife, we're creating project, reducing risk, and building partnership. This is how we think capital flows. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting to see how things are evolving in Tenerife. time flies, so we still have like 15 to 17 minutes. And I still have some questions for the panelists, but I also want to give the room the chance to ask questions to these interesting panelists that we have. So are there any questions from the room to our panelists before we continue? Because I want to also hear from you, and maybe you want to hear other things from them. So to whom can I give the floor to ask a question? And please state who you are, your name, your organization, or country, or island, and to which specific panelists you direct your question. This side? No? Nobody? In the middle? Okay. Can someone help us with? Yes, go ahead. Is there the possibility to give him a mic? Just 1 second, because I cannot hear you.
Hear me, but thank you so much. And I want to start from the beginning of your question on investables. And I think that's a question that we hear a lot, both from our island partners and also from our folks in the private sector. And I think for us, the simple thing is we have to redefine what's considered as investable. We have to redefine what we consider as profitable, and instead look at it from the perspective of investing in nature means that 100 years from now, there will still be a planet. So, and that just simply means that what we understand as return in a private sector lens, your return may not be in 5, 10 years, but it means that by investing in nature, it could be that you're looking at nature-based solutions. Let's say coastal erosion, and instead of investing in just brick and mortar, you're now looking at how do you invest more in your mangroves and other nature-based solutions. Your return may not look the same as if you were doing traditional investment. But it means that you are investing in something that that nature will be sustained. It means that livelihoods will continue to be there. A lot of times when we talk about nature and we talk about climate change, we think that some persons may think that it's not something that's going to happen right now. But the fact is, some of our islands are sinking. That's not a hyperbole. So now how do we make sure that we are looking at investment through that lens, that there's actually going to be something to invest in 10, 20, 30 years around? So it's not a straightforward answer, but it's to say that for us, we are turning the paradigm on its head. We're turning definitions on its head and saying, how do we look at investment differently? How do we look at investment in a sustained way so that there is a planet for our grandchildren, great-grandchildren to be there? And not everybody in the private sector realm will quickly understand that. But we're saying, let's just take some time to redefine what is investable, what is risk, how do we look at scaling? So it may not be just one island or two communities or two islands alone, but how do we now look at things from combining an island chain? So for example, if we're looking at the PCIDs, the Pacific, for example, maybe investing in a Tuvalu, you may not consider that to be you may consider that to be high risk, but if you combine Tuvalu, Tonga, and Kiribati together, then it becomes a great investment. It's lower risk, and you can now scale. And then, because you're looking at it from a portfolio perspective and not just a project, it means that you have an opportunity to attract different types of financing and different types of investment. So essentially not looking at things from that traditional way that those of us in multilateral banking has been looking at it for the last 10, 20, 30 years.
Thank you. Other questions from the room? Yes?
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Lamika Williams. I am from the Turks and Caicos Islands government. And my question is a follow-up to the gentleman. How does natural capital assessments actually lend to nature banking? And how can small island states actually levy that as a part of nature banking and looking for capital investment?
To whom? Shaki?
Thanks. Before I wanted to
Simon?
bring in,
Yeah.
Simon wanted to just come in on that, the other first question, and then I'll come.
Yeah, I can look at take both those questions, and I think the way that our thesis at least is that you can protect and promote nature without taking subscale returns, and it's very much about how you essentially structure the transactions and how you approach the transaction over the life of the deal. So essentially, we of course lead impact first. So before we look at any type of transaction, we assess essentially what we believe is the type of environmental and impact that we're trying to invest into and trying to scale up or try to protect. And so that is type of step one of any credible type of investment in the space. And that can be a range of things. Now, certain investments, mangroves and things like this, will lend itself to certain types of investors and certain types of structures. I mean, Outrigger itself is looking at a range of blue economy type sectors. So we'll look at conservation and ecotourism, marine protected areas, but equally we're looking at fisheries and processing, and we're looking at infrastructure, gray-green resilience. So we're looking at a range of transactions, and often we see that each transaction can actually have multi-revenues. So essentially it's not just one transaction. So if you take a marine protected area, really the way that you can support marine protected areas, as we can see this is what's happening in practice now, is by generating user fees from a number of different types of sources. And it can come from tourism, but maybe it can come from access, maybe it comes from the landing charge, maybe it comes from even some form of type of local taxation. So there's a range of things that you can do that supports the type of ecosystem that you're trying to protect. And I think it's too simple to say that you can't do that with an economic return. I think you do have to understand the risk, and you may have to structure the transaction to manage risk with some guarantees or with public-private partnerships and different ways of managing the cash flows. But we would contend that essentially we can invest into nature, make an economic return for our investors on a blended structure, and basically put long-term sustainability in place.
I do want to come in on value in nature, because and just to break it down, because for a lot of us, this whole idea of value in nature is something that's very new. If, for example, we look at our ocean space, a lot of us, we have seagrass. And that's something that has a value, but how do you attribute a value to it? It really starts from the science. And there have been a lot of work in academia and through private sector partners on valuing our nature, our natural assets. And that starts from looking at your base. So a lot of the work that we do is through our partners that look at geospatial mapping. So looking at what a country has below what any of us can see. And through that mapping, you can actually see what's the stock, so what's there now. You can do things like look at, I mean, you can't go back in some instances, but you can really look at the rate of how is it degenerating or how does it generate. So both at are we taking care of it, are we conserving it, or is it dying faster than we can take care of it? Because all of that goes into the value. Then the other side is once you have attributed a value to it, how is that value verified? So that's also part of the work that a lot of the private sector and academia are looking at, the monitoring and verification. So if a country says, I have 1,000 hectares of seagrass, how can an independent assessor, how can private sector come in and say, well, how can you verify that that's what it is? And that's where you need industry players. Then, on the industry player side, that's where companies like the insurers and so on come in, because just like with any asset, if we're going to say that our nature is now on the books and it's an asset, it means that it will now need to be insured. And I know a lot of the big insurance companies, they are investing a lot in that research, and they are also in the market. I can say that particularly in the Pacific and in the Caribbean, where they're now looking at how do you bring nature on your books and really go out to help to raise capital through that. And the other part of looking at the value of nature, it's not just to say that today I have 1,000 hectares of seagrass and it's in good condition, but part of you saying that it comes on your books, how do you conserve and preserve it? Because it cannot be an asset if you're not going to take care of it. You can't continue to raise capital from it if you don't put the legislative framework in place to preserve that asset. So what I love to look at it, and when we bring nature on the books, there's also a mobilization of capital side of it, but there's also that side that says if you want to continue to mobilize capital, it means that through your legislative framework, you have to ensure that that asset is preserved and it will be taken care of. And it's not an asset that's sold, so it continues to be the asset of the country. But now, how do you leverage that to mobilize capital that you would not have ordinarily been able to get because you did not consider the value to that particular thing?
Okay. Would you like to comment also on the
Nature-based solutions.
yes, or how do you see it as RMI?
Yeah, so we focus mainly on energy and resilience, but we do see some of the same tensions when we talk about, how do you invest in resilience, right? And one of the things that we are looking at doing is how do you tie investments in resilience into actual reduction of risk, right? So a lot of island nations are finding that they're not able to secure insurance anymore because of the climate risks. And there are ways that you can support building climate resilient infrastructure and make the case for how that improves insurability and leads to economic benefits for countries. So not exactly the same situation, but also some of the kind of tensions that we're looking at where there isn't a direct line of sight on the profit or financial motive. But if you look at a holistic system, you can make the case for building out resilient infrastructure as a way of mitigating against risks in the event of climate shocks. One of the things that RMI has recently updated is what we call our Solar Under Storm paper, which is really an open-sourced playbook on how to design distributed grid systems to be able to withstand Category 5 hurricanes and 180 mile per hour winds. And this is something we've open sourced. And obviously the design costs are more, but the benefits are so profound. And we want to see more island nations building out and employing this sort of design approach.
Another question, our last question. Jean?
Thank you. Not so much a question, but a comment that links the two previous questions that were raised. The question that we need to think through is, what do we mean by, I think Ashaki started there, an investable asset? And that's the distinction between seeing nature as a resource and the services that nature provides. That is what converts it into an investable flow of income, and that is what you price in the structure that the colleague was actually making. So in the case where you're saying you're doing a nature-based solution, while you put the nature as a resource on your books as a stock item, it is the benefits that accrue to it that becomes the asset that your investor is going to put money into. Because one, it can be risk mitigating, as you've just said, from your loss reduction, that has a value, which is quantifiable. It can be simple revenue generating, whether it's in the fisheries or ecotourism component. It now generates livelihoods and community cohesion that now helps to promote this whole broader societal element. It can promote jobs as an ancillary element. So when we talk about the return, it is not just the value of that resource. It is the entirety of the stream of benefits that are now going to be monetized. And that is what makes the difference between the return that the investor puts in, the risk associated with that return, and how it benefits the outcomes to the country. So I think we need to see it in this broader sense. And the moment you position it there, it makes perfect sense for any investor that the money they are putting in to restore, regenerate nature is not just to keep the tree or the ocean looking good. It is because of all of the things that can flow from it, and it is the value of those services that give you the return that justifies the money that was actually put in. So that's the topic you need to be able to embrace. Thank you.
Our time is up, but just a short comment from
Wrapping,
Simon.
I beg you to be
Very
prompt.
short, very short, yeah.
Very shortly, you and speakers, because we are behind schedule.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think that you have to be careful not to be too abstract when you talk about nature. And so I think you have to be looking at, we look at nature as essentially real asset, and you're investing into a stream of real asset, generates cash flow, and it's as an investor and as a project, it's obviously in your benefit to essentially protect that over the long term. So that's how you look at it. And you need to, Outrigger is trying to get to the very practical investment solution. So we're not really chasing type of seagrass, biodiversity carbon credits today, because I think that is still in the abstract domain. But what we are definitely looking at is fisheries spillover effect from MPAs, where you can increase the value of fisheries significantly within a type of 3 or 4 year type of period. We're looking at sustainable fisheries, process and traceability, ice that generates increased yield, both to local fishermen and to a project. And so, and you're protecting the stock and the livelihoods that go with that. So I would just encourage you to, when you think about projects in nature, to really think about it from a real asset point of view. How do you generate the cash flow by and protect and grow the resource?
Yeah, thank you so much. It was very interesting. We have to leave, but I invite you to continue the conversation during coffee breaks and also later today. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you to all the panelists, and I look forward to continue the conversation later on. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Vanessa Ture, and thank you all honorable speakers, for your comments about what is important as well. Of course, the capital to keep on doing things on terms of sustainability. We're now going for a session which sets the stage for the upcoming launch of the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund. And there will be highlighting key challenges, opportunities, and partnerships shaping the future of climate finance in the Virgin Islands. For this panel, we have the pleasure of having with us Chamberlain Emmanuel, which is CEO in Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund, Mrs. Angela Burnett-Penn, Climate Change Officer, Ministry of Natural Resources and Labour, Government of the Virgin Islands, and Mrs. Tessa Smith-Claxton, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Natural Resources and Labour, Government of the Virgin Islands. Thank you very much and be very welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, the session will start in 1 minute. Please remain seated. Thank you. Estimados asistentes, la sesión empezará en 1 minuto. Por favor, manténganse sentados. Gracias.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for the next session. But please put attention on the screen because we have a video before our speakers will be on stage. Thank you very much.
This is my island in the sun, willed to me by my father's hands. All my days I'm gonna sing and praise of a forest, our waters and a shining sand.
It's so nice to see you at the GCIS all the way here in the Canary Islands.
Yes, it's really, really nice to be here, actually. What have you been up to?
I've been Googling. I've been doing some Googling about small islands and some of the challenges that we face.
Tell me what you found.
And I found out some statistics that small islands contribute to less than 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions.
Oh, yes, I think that's
and
true.
yet, they face the worst consequences.
I have heard that somewhere. And you know, it's true, the worst consequences indeed. Did you know that over the last 5 decades or so, SIDS have racked up a bill of $153 billion, not million, billion dollars in climate-related losses?
Wow.
Disproportionate to their GDPs.
Wow, wow. And I've also heard in my Googling is important,
Yes.
that those same small islands need at least 6 times more money, more adaptation finance than is actually available to them. So.
Is it a matter of availability or access? Because from what I've seen,
Yes.
it seems like the money is there.
There is
It's
money.
just that there are real barriers to SIDS accessing those monies. In fact, did you know that SIDS only receive not 1%, but 0.2% of
0.2?
global 0.2%.
Wow.
0.2%, of global climate finance. And that's concentrated in just 10 of 39 SIDS. But can you imagine that the situation is even worse for subnational island jurisdictions like our Virgin Islands, a British overseas territory in the Caribbean? We are entirely excluded from access to climate finance. We can't access the Adaptation Fund, the Green Climate Fund, the New Loss and Damage Fund. We're just entirely excluded because of our constitutional status. And worse yet, as you know, because of Brexit, we can no longer access EU funds. And because we have a fairly high GDP, which is really a false metric, as we've heard, we are also not eligible to access ODA. So we find ourselves in quite a pickle.
But yet, we are so exposed when it comes to climate risks. Do you remember, you must remember, in 2017, when we were faced with those 2 major storms, Hurricane Irma, which was a direct hit, and I would say it almost wiped us off the map.
How could I
We're
forget,
lucky we're still
Tessa?
here.
Record-breaking.
Record-breaking.
Category 5 hurricane. Strongest hurricane to ever make landfall in the history of the Atlantic at the time.
At the time.
We were the test case.
We were the test case. And
then
we survived.
We survived. And do you remember 2 days after the hit, we were threatened by Hurricane Jose, Category 4, missed us by a hair, and then 2 weeks later, Category 5 Hurricane Maria.
Yeah.
That was our reality in 2017.
Yes.
Our GDP wiped out in less than a day.
Yes, and the total damage, the total cost was 2.4 billion in damage
Not
and
million.
loss. Billion.
Billion, I got
2.4 billion. And that is almost double our GDP.
Right.
and our total estimated cost of recovery, because you know we're still recovering. We live in that
Oh,
reality.
yes. Recovering, we still are recovering.
Yes, is more than $4 billion US dollars.
Yep. Things are more expensive these days. That's
Yes.
right. So, Tessa, that is exactly why the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund matters so much. You know, hey, I think the CEO might be here.
I think he's here.
Why
I
don't
think
we
he-
have
I
the
think
CEO,
I saw him on the plane.
Mr. Chamberlain Emmanuel, tell the audience a little bit more about our trust fund?
And so this afternoon we want to explore with you how do we break these barriers? How do we design a climate finance facility for overseas territories wherein there are unique barriers despite of this?
Thank you.
What does a climate resilient island chain look like? And how do seeds get their fair share of climate finance? How do we build and leverage the capacity we need for climate resilience? And how do we curate the right partnerships for climate finance sources to deliver climate resilience? That is happening this afternoon at 1:45.
Which room, sir?
Room 3, event room 3. In room 3, and we invite all of you to come join us in the conversation. Our co-moderators, Angela and Tessa, will tell you a little more about the magnificent set of speakers and contributors who will be there this afternoon.
Yes, definitely. So from the Virgin Islands, leading our delegation is our Honorable Julian Fraser. He's our Deputy Premier and also the Minister responsible for Environment and Climate Change. We also have our Climate Envoy, Dr. Kedrick Pickering, and our Permanent Secretary, Dr. Ronald Berkeley, will also be hosting our panel discussion this afternoon.
Right. And they'll, of course, all be making some remarks at the event that I'm sure you'll be delighted to hear, sharing some very interesting information with you. And in addition to the speeches, we'll have a presentation by the CEO, I think. He's going to walk us through the mechanics of the fund, this novel, groundbreaking entity, and show us how it's done. And not just how it's done for the Virgin Islands, but how it can be applied
Don't say too much right now.
to other territories and other cities.
Yes,
Is that right?
yes.
Okay. All right. I won't say anything more for
And
right
of
now.
course, our chair.
Right, yes. Yeah, he's going to be on the panel that we're co-moderating, and he's going to be joined by the amazing set of speakers you can see at the bottom of the screen that come from a wide range of backgrounds. I just can't wait to pose those questions to them.
I'm excited.
And hear I'm sure, a very
excited.
rich discussion that's going to come out of...
One more thing before we
Sure.
leave. One more thing, and you can speak to it. What is this?
Ah, yes, yes. Has anybody been to the Virgin Islands before?
I
By show
have.
of hand.
I have.
But we live there, Tessa.
Oh,
Come
yes,
on.
that's
Has
right.
anybody been to the Virgin? Oh, just one. Okay, so all of you would be very excited to hear that in the true spirit of celebration, we are giving away a 5-night stay in the lovely Jocelyn Dyke, one of our 4 main islands, for a lucky participant.
A couple, 2 persons.
A couple,
fine.
yes, that's
2
correct.
people,
A couple. So if you have a spouse or anybody else you would like to bring, for attending our lunch event this afternoon, you get to drop your business card in, and you might be the lucky winner of a 5-night stay in lovely Jocelyn Dyke, compliments of the Trust Fund, right? So please come out and celebrate with us. And we look forward to meeting one of you, our lucky winner in the Virgin Islands, and experiencing, what did we say we're creating, Mr. Emmanuel?
The world's first climate-smart island chain.
That's right. So come see it while we create it.
Room 3, 145. But before we leave, we want to also just leave a video with you. We've had a very, very supportive partners and agencies that have been part of this journey. This has been quite a journey. And we want to hear the voices of our partners in this final video. We want to say thank you to you, those of you who are here, those of you who may be listening. And we invite you to join this journey with us as we look to accelerate and to scale towards creating our vision. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you at 1:45.
Very much. That was a great performance, isn't it? We didn't expect that. Well.
On behalf of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, I am proud to endorse the launch of the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund. For almost 2 decades, we worked with the government of the Virgin Islands, helping to conceptualize and design the fund. Our then Deputy Director, Dr. Ulrich Trotz, assisted in drafting the Virgin Islands Climate Trust Fund Act. Legally established and pioneering among overseas territories, this trust fund provides a secure, independent, transparent, and accountable platform to mobilize long-term sustainable finance at scale. It will draw on traditional, innovative, and blended resources to build resilience and protect lives and livelihoods in the Virgin Islands and the region. Congratulations to the government of the Virgin Islands on this significant milestone. Going forward, you can count on the full support of the 5 Cs.
The OECS is proud to endorse the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund. This pioneering initiative is a vital step towards our shared vision of a climate-smart island chain. With its transparent governance and regional leadership, the fund provides a secure platform for sustainable climate finance. We stand fully behind this mission. Congratulations on this historic international launch.
Warm greetings from the Eastern Caribbean. Congratulations to the government of the Virgin Islands on launching the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund. This is a powerful step, unlocking capital to drive real climate action, from mitigation to adaptation. The United Nations is proud to partner with you on this journey.
The launch of the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund marks a decisive and much-needed step for small island developing states. For too long, access to climate finance has been fragmented, increasingly more and more becoming unpredictable and insufficient relative to the scale of the challenges that we face. What this trust fund does critically is create a structured, transparent, and locally anchored financing mechanism that can mobilize, manage, and deploy resources where they are needed most. This is innovative because it moves beyond dependence. It builds ownership, positions the Virgin Islands to access not only traditional funding, but also blended and innovative financing at scale while ensuring accountability and long-term sustainability. More importantly, it creates a platform for transformation, supporting climate resilience, clean energy transition, and sustainable development across sectors. At CCRI, the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, we see this as a model not only for the Virgin Islands, but for the wider Caribbean, a scalable approach that can unlock regional climate ambition. This is what taking control of our climate future looks like, shifting from vulnerability to urgency, from reliance to leadership. And we commend this bold step and stand ready to partner in turning ambition into measurable impact for the Virgin Islands and the entire region. Thank you.
The Caribbean Biodiversity Fund is proud to welcome the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund as a new partner in our regional conservation network. Your commitment to local conservation is a win for the entire Caribbean. As the organization grows, the CBF stands ready to provide technical support and collaborative funding. Welcome to the family. Together, we look forward to working with you to secure a sustainable future for our islands.
On behalf of the Global Island Partnership, we just want to send heartfelt congratulations to the Virgin Islands on the launch of the Climate Change Trust Fund. This is a significant but very challenging undertaking, but you won't be alone. GSIS will be here, and the Islands Trust Alliance, our community of practice of like-minded conservation trust funds across all 6 regions, will be here to support you every step of the way.
On behalf of the Development Bank for Resilient Prosperity, I am super excited to support the launch of the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund. Veritably a first step in the repricing of resilience and mobilizing of capital in vulnerable economies.
The Caribbean stands on the front line of the climate crisis, but also at the forefront of climate solutions, which is why the CARICOM Secretariat proudly supports the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund as a bold step towards a resilient, climate-smart future for our region.
Island Innovation is proud to support the Virgin Islands Climate Change Trust Fund at this year's Global Sustainable Island Summit because we believe that it's a really fantastic model for other island regions and territories to learn from for the local implementation when it comes to sustainable and climate finance.
Thank you very much to all those participants who somehow were with us today. And now let's go for the next session, and the last one for this morning. It will be circular tourism in island economies, turning waste into value. This session explores how circular tourism can transform waste into value, helping island destinations reduce environmental impact while strengthening local economies. This session is going to be moderated by Michaela Johnson, Impact and Growth Manager in Island Innovation. Let's welcome them on stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated for this session. Thank you. Estimados asistentes, por favor, manténganse sentados en sus asientos para esta sesión. Gracias.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session on circular tourism in island economies, turning waste into value. Today, we'll be discussing how island economies depend heavily on tourism and how they can then adapt circular approaches to waste, turning growing environmental challenges into opportunities to create value, support local livelihoods, and protect their natural assets. I'm Michaela Johnson from Island Innovation, and I'm thrilled to be moderating the session today with such an excellent group of speakers. To kick the discussion off, I'll turn to our first speaker. Sergio Cabellos de Francisco is the Public Business Director at PreZero España. Sergio, you work directly on large-scale waste management systems, so let's start there locally. Waste to energy is a technology that must coexist with recycling, as they're not substitutes for one another. What should the optimal relationship be between these two solutions? And specifically within the island context of Gran Canaria, what does that look like?
Speak in Spanish to be as clear as possible. So I have a presentation. No.
Please, a reminder to our speaker that the presentation is on the laptop in front of you. Thank you.
This is the presentation. Ahora sí, disculpar. Bueno, iba a dar una visión, antes de responder a esa pregunta, que es compleja en cuanto a reciclaje o valorización energética. Me gustaría daros una visión de sostenibilidad desde el punto de vista de la perspectiva europea, para que entendamos todos la gran complejidad o retos que nos hemos impuesto todos los países de la Unión Europea. Al final, como intentaré explicaros, son objetivos muy ambiciosos en la que todos los Estados miembros, todos los países nos hemos comprometido a alcanzar, y para lograrlo, las Islas Canarias, como una región más o una comunidad autónoma más dentro de España, tiene que cumplir esos objetivos. La estrategia de economía circular en Europa nace desde el Pacto Verde Europeo y el Plan de Acción para una economía circular. Tenemos objetivos como alcanzar la neutralidad climática en el año 2050. Y aquí la estrategia de la economía circular es una pieza clave para conseguir este objetivo. Os he puesto en uno de los lados de la imagen para que veáis los objetivos que tenemos que conseguir todos los países y todas las regiones de Europa en el año 2035. Os he puesto 3 indicadores nada más que me parecen los más relevantes. A la izquierda de todo, la recogida selectiva de materiales que tiene que ser de alta calidad. Si veis el objetivo que está cumpliendo España, está en torno al 28% de este objetivo, cuando tiene que alcanzar un objetivo de al menos el 50% de todos los residuos municipales que se producen en el país. Las Islas Canarias están en un 22%. El segundo gran objetivo, que suele englobar la preparación para la reutilización y el reciclaje, y que lo solemos resumir en reciclaje, tenemos un objetivo extremadamente complejo, alcanzar un 65% del reciclaje de todos los residuos municipales en el año 2035. Las Islas Canarias están en torno al 20%. Y hay un objetivo más complejo todavía y donde tiene mucho que ver el waste to energy. Conseguir reducir el uso de los vertederos a menos del 10% en el año 2035. El objetivo ahora mismo de España está en torno al 50% de cumplimiento y las Islas Canarias envía al vertedero prácticamente el 70% de todos los residuos. Un matiz fundamental, y es que aunque los residuos municipales, los residuos que generamos en nuestros hogares, en nuestras casas, en nuestros hoteles, en nuestros centros comerciales, no son los más importantes en cuanto a volumen, sí son uno de los flujos que más nos retrata, nos pone frente al espejo como sociedad, nos pone ante el espejo como administraciones públicas y también como empresas, porque ahí estamos decidiendo cómo estamos aprovechando nuestros recursos y qué estamos haciendo con ellos. Por eso estos 3 indicadores suelen medir muy bien si una economía circular funciona o avanza o evoluciona en un país, en una región, en una empresa o en un hotel. Todos sabemos que el camino está marcado por la jerarquía de residuos. Todos sabemos que lo mejor es prevenir los residuos. Pero fijaros que no os he indicado cuál es el objetivo de prevención en Europa. El objetivo es alcanzar en torno al 15% de reducción de generación de residuos respecto al dato del 2010. En el año 2022, último dato conocido en España, estábamos en una reducción del 3%. Lo que os quiero decir es que tenemos que usar todos los escalones de la jerarquía de residuos. No tenemos que aferrarnos solamente a uno de ellos. Desgraciadamente, la gestión de los residuos implica elegir inteligentemente todos ellos de manera práctica. El reciclaje es una pieza clave. Alcanzar un objetivo de 65% en reciclaje es claramente muy ambicioso. Algunos países se están acercando ya a este objetivo. ¿Y por qué usamos tanto los vertederos? Esa sería la pregunta clave, no solamente en las Islas Canarias, sino en cualquier región europea. Pues lo elegimos sencillamente por 2 razones. Porque técnicamente es muy sencillo de operar, requiere poca inversión y en comparación con cualquier otra alternativa tecnológica es más económico. Si queremos realmente pasar de residuos a recursos, creo que hay 4 escalones que son fundamentales y algunos ya los he escuchado durante este foro. El primero de todos ellos es una recogida selectiva de calidad. Fijaros que hablamos mucho de la recogida selectiva de materia orgánica. Por ley es obligatoria en España desde el año 2024 y realmente la implantación de lo que aquí llamamos el 5.º contenedor, un contenedor que recoge exclusivamente materia orgánica, está siendo muy desigual. No está implantado en todas las ciudades, ni en todos los municipios, ni tampoco en todas las Islas Canarias. Pero es fundamental porque prácticamente entre el 30 y el 40% de la composición de nuestros residuos municipales es materia orgánica. Si no quitamos este elemento de los flujos, es muy difícil que el resto de tecnologías que aplicamos en las plantas de clasificación o de reciclaje funcionen de manera óptima. Os pondré un dato. Si los ciudadanos, los hoteles, mezclamos todos los residuos, por muy avanzadas que sean nuestras tecnologías, podremos recuperar, clasificar materiales, plásticos, metales, aluminios, en torno al 8, el 10, el 12% de las entradas. Si esas mismas tecnologías, esas mismas plantas, las aprovechamos para recuperar, por ejemplo, un envase ligero que separamos los ciudadanos desde hace muchos años, la efectividad sube al 70 al 80% de capacidad de reciclaje. Por eso es fundamental retirar la materia orgánica de todo el resto de flujos. Y luego con la materia orgánica pasamos al segundo escalón, podemos decidir qué hacemos. Podemos producir energía, bien a través de digestión anaerobia, producir biogás, producir biometano o simplemente podemos producir compost, que es una solución óptima y muchas veces económica. Es fundamental que tengamos en cuenta que las tecnologías van a depender de la escala del proyecto que tengamos. En muchos territorios no tiene sentido aplicar un waste to energy o aplicar una digestión anaerobia. Necesitamos una escala mínima para que esas inversiones sean eficientes económicamente. Y os he puesto en el tercer escalón la recuperación de energía. En el caso de las Islas Canarias, con el volumen de población que tenemos, fijaros, 2,2 millones de habitantes, más de 18 millones de turistas, nos da un ratio de prácticamente 1,60 kilos por habitante día. Para que os hagáis una idea, esto es como un 20 o un 30% más de lo que produce un territorio similar sin turistas. Es decir, los turistas en las Islas Canarias producen los mismos residuos que todos los habitantes en 4 años. Si no usamos el waste to energy, es prácticamente imposible cumplir con el máximo legal que tenemos establecido del 10% en el 2035. Una sencilla razón, tenemos que reciclar un 65%, tenemos que, como mucho, usar los vertederos un 10%. Tenemos un gap en torno al 25 o 30% que tenemos que valorizar de alguna manera. Y por último, para que veáis un poco la realidad de esta isla, de Gran Canaria. En Gran Canaria, realmente, si retrocedo a la primera slide de todas, veréis que las islas no están tan mal en comparación con el territorio nacional. Está prácticamente en la lista media de cumplimiento de objetivos, tanto de recogida selectiva como de cumplimiento de reciclaje, incluso de uso de vertederos. Hay regiones todavía en este país que entierran los residuos directamente sin plantas de clasificación como las que veis aquí. Una situada en el norte de Gran Canaria y otra en el sur, capaces de gestionar más de 600.000 toneladas al año de los residuos que generan todos nuestros ciudadanos y turistas. Pero fijaros, y acabo en un detalle, son capaces de procesar más de 360.000 toneladas de fracción mezclada y apenas reciben 13.000 toneladas de envases o 6.000 toneladas de materia orgánica. Tenemos infraestructura preparada para recibir todos los flujos separados. Las infraestructuras ya están construidas. El único matiz que nos queda ahora mismo es si afrontamos o no la realidad del waste to energy, porque conseguir reducir un 67% de rechazo hasta un 10% va a requerir de nuevas tecnologías. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Sergio. You really set out the importance of infrastructure and systems. But as we know, infrastructure alone isn't enough. It also has to influence behavior at the source. So that brings us to the consumer side of the equation and to our next speaker, Toan Valen, the new business developer at Join the Pipe. The floor is yours.
Can you check how it works?
Tech team, can we have the slides up?
Sorry? Hello, everyone. Thank you. Yeah. Polluted beaches, plastic garbage, expensive single-use bottles, pilot cupping storage, landfills, complicated logistics, and in the end, an unsatisfied guest. These are things hotels, organizations, municipalities, islands do not want. So let's talk about some things they do want. Organizations want to enhance guest experience, guest satisfaction, give something that lasts, something that people actually use. Less pressure on operations, less work for bars, less work for cleaners, less work for garbage disposal companies. And promote sustainability, but not just saying it, but actually doing it. What we have created. We're coming with a tailored solution specially made for you, for your organization, your island, your hotel, everything. So let's start with our bottles. You might have already seen them. Some people already took them from our stands. Otherwise, you can take a free sample at our booth. Fun fact, they're made of sugarcane. So not oil-based, they're made of sugarcane, and they're not biodegradable. So, of course, from harvesting the sugarcane to finalizing the last bottle, the production process is CO2 negative. So that means that more CO2 comes back to Earth than it produces. Let's talk about the design as well, because each bottle we create has a special, unique, generic design, and it's not the same like you see always with single-use bottles. But going to such a beautiful island like Gran Canaria, it's better just than a regular bottle, of course. That's why we have the bottles with the local landmarks, as shown on the screen right now. So you see Barcelona, Gran Canaria, and also a few different ones, because we can tailor-make the bottles as well. As shown on the screen, you have Curaçao with the Marriott Hotel and the TUI Blue, the hotel that's now currently being built. The TUI Blue in special is a very good example of how you can promote sustainability and get rid of single-use plastics. It's now being built, and they're almost at the ending phase, and they open in July. And they've bought some of our taps, and also one guest will receive a bottle of their own as well, to enjoy during the stay, during the hotel, and also take home. Our taps. Just like said before, you can also buy our taps, because we made the fully tailored solution for almost everyone. And they're built for withstand the hardest conditions ever. So they're placed now in Canada, where it freezes most of the time, in Curaçao, where you have a lot to do with corrosion and other stuff, and in Dubai, where it can get up to 50 degrees. With Join the Pipe, parts of our profits also go to Africa to help communities that don't have any water or have limited access to it. With our profits, we have established over 1,500 water wells throughout Africa, distributed hundreds of thousands of bottles, and organized numerous cleanups. Join the Pipe and be part of that too. Reuse, reduce with Join the Pipe. Do you want to help your hotel, your guest, and the planet all at the same time? We're happy to talk and connect. Come find us at the entrance or scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This brings me to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Sebastian Martinez, founder and CEO of Green Efficient. Sebastian, your work in Tenerife sits right at the intersection of infrastructure, energy, and environment efficiency. From your experience, what are the most practical circular economy interventions that tourism-dependent islands can implement quickly?
Thank you. I prefer speaking in Spanish for better comprehension. Nuestra empresa se dedica a desarrollar soluciones fotovoltaicas y de acumulación en todas las islas, y en el tema de residuos desde hace más de 10 años estamos francamente involucrados con unas ideas innovadoras. Estamos desarrollando a través de ver cómo evoluciona el ciclo de la vida útil de los paneles solares, que como bien saben pueden durar alrededor de 20 años, pues el parque fotovoltaico que hay en Canarias es de alrededor de unos 200 megavatios instalados desde hace ya de más de 20 años. Lo que estamos intentando es no reciclar esta materia prima, estos paneles solares que todavía están produciendo con cierta eficiencia, sino reacondicionarlos, recogerlos, reacondicionarlos y darles una segunda vida útil. Para que hagáis una idea, estos 200 megavatios de potencia instalada en Canarias pueden suponer alrededor de más de 400 toneladas de residuos, o sea, en componentes fotovoltaicos, desde aluminio, cristal, sílice, que es el principal motor de la generación eléctrica del módulo, cobre, estaño, unos 7-8 gramos de plata también hay dentro de cada uno de los paneles, con lo cual estamos viendo que una opción evidente puede ser el reciclaje y luego volver con esas materias primas a generar otros productos, otros activos, pero si nosotros con nuestra tecnología desarrollada en Canarias a través de técnicos especializados en reacondicionar, cambiar células o marcos de aluminio y tener unas líneas de producción eficientes, podemos generar estos paneles una segunda vida dotándoles de entre 10 y 15 años de batería, con una eficiencia, la verdad, que bastante óptima. La energía solar fotovoltaica creo que es importantísima para el desarrollo y empoderamiento o soberanía energética de las islas, tanto del Atlántico Medio como del Caribe, ¿no? Dada la radiación solar. Entonces, con estas iniciativas donde nosotros ya estamos pensando en que esta segunda vida útil puedan ir a países o regiones insulares en vías de desarrollo, podamos descarbonizar y fomentar la economía circular, ¿no? No solo el gestión de residuos como tal.
So I have just one question, and this can be answered by anyone on the panel. How can successful circular tourism initiatives in one island or destination be adapted and scaled across on different islands? So I know we have perspectives from Tenerife and from Gran Canaria and a bit of a global perspective from Join the Pipe as well. But how can we learn from one island and then scale to another island? What's the best approach for that?
Para esta respuesta, lo que estamos viendo básicamente que la regulación dentro de europea, insular y del gobierno de Canarias pues está ahí, no podemos saltárnosla, no podemos hacer lo que nos dé la gana y evidentemente esta regulación nos está conllevando a tener limitaciones, sobre todo en el desarrollo en el espacio-tiempo de estos proyectos de energías renovables como primera instancia y como segunda instancia tenemos que esos reciclajes, esos sistemas de economía circular ahora mismo son vocacionales, no están regulados de tal manera que se obligue a que después del final de la vida útil de parques fotovoltaicos o si empezamos a hablar también de energía eólica, ¿no? Tengan una directriz clara de la Unión Europea, vemos que todavía no está y cuando llegue va a ser otro tropiezo más en la gestión del tiempo y llegar a esos objetivos, ¿no? Nos va a limitar, evidentemente, en diferentes categorías, va a aumentar el coste de todos los desarrollos, como viene siendo habitual, pero bueno, nuestra intención es siempre estar por delante y cuando llegue esa regulación, pues estar preparados y ser lo más eficiente posible.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I'm just going to open the floor to questions from the audience. We should have a moving mic. So please identify yourself if you do have any questions for any of the panelists. I see we have one question to the back. No? Okay. Any questions at all? Yeah, one question to the front here, Green.
Gracias. Voy a hablar en español. En primer lugar me presento, me llamo Cristina y formo parte de la delegación de la Isla del Hierro, de aquí de las Islas Canarias. Nosotros tenemos no es una pregunta, es más bien una reflexión sobre lo que hemos venido escuchando durante la mañana y bueno, si alguno de los ponentes quiere aportar algo a lo que digo o responder a a los porqués de lo que voy a plantear. Nosotros tenemos un proyecto de energías renovables que lleva ya 12 años funcionando y con el que hemos conseguido cubrir hasta un 60% de la demanda energética anual. Un proyecto a pequeña escala de lo que va a ser Chira-Soria, o sea que confiamos en el éxito del proyecto de Gran Canaria porque ya en el Hierro pues lo hemos comprobado desde hace 12 años, como decía. Y sobre lo que, bueno, y en noviembre, importante, tenemos la primera conferencia internacional de energías renovables a la que les invito a asistir. Tenemos fuera un stand con información sobre esa conferencia. Mi reflexión sobre lo que hemos venido hablando se me despierta ahora por la primera ponencia que hablaba de reciclaje, que nos decía que el primer escalón era la recogida selectiva. Pero yo aquí he hecho en falta un escalón anterior que es el de las personas, o sea, lo que nosotros hacemos en nuestros hogares. Antes de esa recogida está el ciudadano. En el campo energético también está el ciudadano, lo que nosotros hagamos en casa. O sea, tenemos que empezar por ahí, por la educación, por la escuela, por la concienciación. Podemos invertir en tecnología, podemos invertir en políticas, podemos crear el marco normativo específico para desarrollar esas tecnologías, pero si no tenemos al ciudadano educado y convencido, todo eso va a ser más lento. Aquí hemos hablado hoy también de vulnerabilidad en el campo energético, vulnerabilidad porque un conflicto bélico pues puede afectar a un sector tan esencial como es el energético. Pero es que también que la población no esté convencida, que no esté educada, también es una vulnerabilidad para ese desarrollo, porque puede llegar un programa político que no considere que estas políticas ambientales sean tan importantes y puede ser elegido por el ciudadano. Y entonces puede ralentizar o incluso revertir esos esfuerzos que hemos hecho. Y para eso tenemos que tener la población convencida. Hemos hablado también de inversión, de retorno de la inversión, pero no todo tiene que tener una rentabilidad económica, porque a lo mejor si no invertimos en prevenir, después no vamos a tener dinero, no va a haber debate sobre cómo podemos revertir los daños que le hemos hecho al planeta. Está claro, lo hemos dicho aquí, que la prevención es lo más barato, en energía también, la más barata es la que no se consume, pero por ahí pasan las personas y yo he echado un poco en falta durante esta mañana que se hable de nosotros, de las personas, ¿no? Que al final pues somos todos nosotros, de la educación y de la concienciación. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? One more to the front here.
Perdón, yo voy a hablar en español, supongo que porque es como sé hablar. A ver, soy Blanca Pérez, soy la consejera de Medio Natural, Sostenibilidad, Seguridad de Emergencias del Cabildo de Tenerife. Y quería hablar de residuos y quería hablar de cómo las islas, y sobre todo las islas ultraperiféricas, lo que no puede ser es que la normativa se aplique igual para los que no son iguales. Y eso es lo que está pasando en el caso, en el caso de Canarias a la hora de la gestión de los residuos. Y además tenemos situaciones complicadas en las que la incineración en todas sus modalidades o no hemos sabido o no hemos querido ponerla en valor cuando no hay posibilidades en muchísimos de los casos en convertir en valor ese residuo porque no hay masa crítica suficiente para poder hacerlo, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. Con lo cual estamos abocados en financiar esas industrias para garantizar la sostenibilidad, porque no somos capaces de ir y de poner los problemas sobre la mesa de verdad. O sea, no puede ser que ni Europa ni el Estado español estén tratando igual a los que no son iguales, porque no somos iguales. Igual que no se puede tratar igual a La Gomera que a Tenerife, o El Hierro que a Tenerife o a Gran Canaria. Y tenemos que, ese tema tenemos que ponerlo sobre la mesa de una vez por todas, porque si no, no conseguiremos un sistema sostenible de la gestión de los residuos. Podríamos intentar, por ejemplo, la materia orgánica que no viene de recogida selectiva. Pues podemos ir a plantas de biometanización, claro que podemos ir, pero ya sabemos que son deficitarias, que solo van a ser productivas si ese gas lo usan las navieras para los derechos de emisiones. No van a ser rentables. O sea, el volumen que hay no convierte esas industrias en rentables. Luego nos obliga al hueco y volver al vertedero. Pero es más, si fuésemos capaces de toda esa materia orgánica, tratarla de manera selectiva y hacer ese compost, en este momento somos deficitarios, pero lo que va a ocurrir es que va a haber un exceso con lo que producimos. Luego, de una vez por todas, tenemos que abordar con la seriedad que corresponde, decir, oiga, aquí tienen que sentar con las islas, y no solo pasa aquí, sabemos que tenemos que hablar que es un problema de las islas a nivel general, y que tendremos que afrontar esa situación de una vez por todas, y que las normativas se adapten a lo que tiene que ser. Tendremos que tomar las medidas que correspondan, pero es que yo creo que hay que abordarlo, porque estamos hablando de territorios limitados, en lo que esa gestión hay que hacerla, y hay que hacerla de tal manera que no acabemos penalizando a los que viven aquí, porque si la tasa del vertido la acaba pagando el ciudadano.
Disculpe, pero tenemos solamente un minuto para cerrar la sesión. Gracias.
Thank you very much for the input. So we just have...
Me gustaría hacer una reflexión sobre las dos. ¿No funciona? Ahora, es que yo por ampliar, porque estoy absolutamente de acuerdo con lo que habéis dicho las dos, pero este es un tema de debate que llevaría tiempo. Me he apuntado algunas cosas. Yo creo que Gran Canaria tiene una oportunidad, pero como cualquier territorio, si somos capaces de separar la materia orgánica, conseguimos muchas cosas. Reducir el precio al ciudadano, reducir el coste, pensar si queremos producir compost o producir energía y compost. Yo siempre les pongo el ejemplo que en proyectos que tenemos en otros territorios, con la energía que sacamos de la materia orgánica de los ciudadanos, tenemos suficiente energía para mover todos los camiones que recogen todos los residuos, con gas natural renovable. O sea, esto es técnicamente posible. No es aplicable a todas las islas. Depende de la escala de cantidad de materia orgánica que tengas. Pero una isla como Gran Canaria es factible. Esto está hecho, no tiene ningún problema. Y sobre todo, el no separar la materia orgánica lo que hace es que perdamos valor con todos los materiales que recuperamos. Todos están contaminados, manchados. Yo siempre digo que la materia orgánica es el malo de la película, porque es fácil separarlo al principio y muy difícil. Entorpece todos los productos. El PET no vale el mismo precio en el mercado, no puede usarse para productos alimentarios, el cartón pierde valor, etc. etc. O sea, esta es la primera etapa de todas. Estoy de acuerdo también en que al ciudadano en algún momento habrá que primarle. No puede ser que el que recicla pague lo mismo que el que no recicla. Pero esto creo que nos queda un poco de tiempo para llegar realmente a que haya un pago por generación. Y también se puede aplicar a los hoteles. El que recicla y separa bien en origen paga menos, y el que no lo hace paga más. Otro matiz importante, que es una ventaja, creo, de verdad, que ha sentado mal en muchas administraciones locales, es el impuesto al vertido. El impuesto al vertido que la Unión Europea nos ha obligado a implantarlo. Polonia ha empezado igual y ha empezado por 90 euros por tonelada. Cada tonelada que se mete a un vertedero, 90 euros de impuesto. En España hemos empezado por 30 o 40 euros. Pero lo que estamos haciendo, desde mi punto de vista, mal, es que este impuesto es finalista. Este impuesto a las administraciones deberían reinvertirlo cada año en nuevas infraestructuras, en campañas de concienciación, en contenedores, en lo que sea, porque es de los pocos impuestos ambientales que desaparece. En cuanto baje el rechazo, se deja de pagar. Pero tenemos que reinvertir año a año este impuesto. Seamos conscientes que solo en España este impuesto son 800 millones de euros al año. Con 800 millones de euros al año se pueden hacer muchas cosas. Algunas nos equivocaremos, pero hay muchísimo dinero para poder aumentar todo, desde la prevención hasta el reciclaje, hasta incluso valorización energética, donde toque y tenga sentido aplicarla. Y por último, creo que te he entendido los sistemas integrados. O sea, es cierto que territorios como las Islas Canarias deberían tener una contribución mayor de sistemas integrados como Ecoembes o como... Hay que tener en cuenta los transportes. Y se está peleando en ese sentido, me consta, porque tiene sentido. Al final, el productor que coloca una botella de agua en las islas tiene que hacerse cargo de ese sobrecoste. Y hoy por hoy ese sobrecoste quizás no esté bien calculado.
Thank you. And I know we're out of time, but I just have one quick question for Toon. What is the biggest challenge that you see in terms of adapting to these sustainable circular solutions like the reusable bottles?
Great question. The most of the part we encourage is the not people knowing about it. So single-use plastic has been always the thing we use, and we're trying to promote something that is working but also sustainable. The aluminium bottle takes mining operations and also very big logistical issues, and we found a way to get rid of all those, make it sustainable, and also trying to reuse the product that you are currently buying or offering for free.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. It was quite a fruitful discussion. Thank you, and I'm going to hand back over to Laura now.
Thank you very much, dear speakers. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Michaela, for moderating this interesting and very up-to-date hearing in Gran Canaria regarding tourism and sustainability. Well, it's time for a break. We are going to have now some lunch time, and please take advantage of this moment to do some more networking. We'll be waiting for you in 30 minutes. Thank you very much.